I will settle the conflict in 24 hours. This sentence was repeated like a mantra by Donald Trump throughout his campaign, turning it into an almost messianic electoral promise. Today, in March 2026, this rhetoric is finally facing the harsh reality of the field. Since his return to the Oval Office, the global chessboard has radically changed. We are no longer in the era of slow diplomacy, cautious communiques, and endless multilateral summits. We have entered the era of the Dealmaker-in-Chief, where geopolitics is handled like an aggressive merger and acquisition on Wall Street. But behind the thunderous announcements, what is the reality of this imposed peace? Can we truly extinguish decades-old fires through financial pressure and the weight of isolationism alone? To understand the Trump method, we must first look east, toward the plains of Ukraine. In late 2025, a leaked document changed everything, the famous 28-point plan. Developed in total secrecy by his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, this plan acted as an electric shock to European chancelleries. The basic idea is simple, but brutal: a total and immediate freeze of the current front lines. For Kiev, this is an extremely bitter pill to swallow, as it implies the de facto loss of Crimea and almost all of the Donbass. For Moscow, it is a major territorial victory, but it comes with an ironclad condition that Putin long refused. Ukraine must remain neutral, with a formal commitment not to join NATO for the next 20 years. The method Donald Trump used to impose this plan was that of a diplomatic bulldozer. On one hand, he threatened President Zelensky with a total, immediate, and final halt of all American military and financial aid, which would have left Ukraine alone against the Russian war machine within weeks. On the other, he sent a clear message to the Kremlin: if Russia did not agree to sit at the negotiating table, the United States would flood Ukraine with next-generation weaponry, advanced technologies that had stayed in the hangars until now, capable of striking at the very heart of Russian logistics. It is this all-or-nothing diplomacy that forced both sides to begin the tripartite discussions we are following this March 2026. But many wonder, is this a lasting peace or simply a disguised capitulation that leaves Europe in chronic insecurity? Critics within the European Union, particularly in Paris and Berlin, are vocal, denouncing an abandonment of sovereignty principles in favor of short-term stability that could encourage future aggression elsewhere. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the strategy is just as disruptive, if not more radical. The peace plan for Gaza, presented in late September 2025, marked a historic break from decades of traditional American mediation. Trump simply decided to bypass traditional international institutions. His 20-point plan does not rely on the UN, which he has publicly labeled as ineffective and a biased talking club, but on what he calls the Peace Council, officially established in January 2026. This new body replaces the international organization's mediation role with a pragmatic coalition of regional powers, primarily stemming from the strengthening of the Abraham Accords. The stated objective of this council is clear: to impose an immediate ceasefire supported by an international stabilization force. On paper, the deal seems balanced. Hostages return home, and Palestinian prisoners are released. But the political reality is more complex. The demanded counterpart is a security and administrative trusteeship of the Gaza Strip, managed by regional interests closely aligned with Washington's priorities. Yet, while Trump claimed last February that the war was almost over, a major new obstacle has appeared: Iran. In this month of March 2026, tension is at its peak. American military operations described as preventative against infrastructure linked to Tehran show the paradox of this presidency. Donald Trump officially wants to stop the wars inherited from the past, but he seems ready to risk a new one, far larger, to assert his dominance over the Middle East and guarantee Israel's security. Beyond these specific conflicts, the entire doctrine of American power is being rewritten before our eyes. Under the America First slogan, we are witnessing a form of selective and self-interested disengagement. For Donald Trump, military alliances are no longer moral commitments or a bedrock of shared values, but cost and profit lines in a national budget. He perceives NATO and American bases abroad as protection services that allies must now pay for at a high price. This partial withdrawal, or paid protection, mechanically creates immense geopolitical vacuums. In Europe, as in Asia, the question is no longer whether the United States will intervene on principle, but what price they will demand not to withdraw entirely. This transactional vision transforms international relations into a vast market where everything is negotiated: customs duties, military support, and even the recognition of borders. Internally in the United States, this policy radically divides the country. A portion of the electorate, tired of 20 years of wars in the Middle East, sees these agreements as the end of the financial and human hemorrhaging. They support a president who promises to bring money and soldiers home to rebuild American infrastructure. But for security experts and career diplomats, this withdrawal leaves the field open to China and Russia. These rival powers are waiting for just that to redraw the rules of global trade and international law in their image, without having to answer for human rights. Let's speak specifically about the economic dimension of this Trump peace. The president is using the weapon of the dollar and customs tariffs like never before. For him, economic war and military war are two sides of the same coin. By threatening allies and adversaries with customs duties of 60% or more, he obtains diplomatic concessions that none of his predecessors managed to extract. It is a wallet diplomacy that speaks directly to the interests of the economic elites of each country. In Ukraine, for example, persistent rumors suggest that the peace plan includes preferential clauses for the exploitation of Ukrainian natural resources by American companies. Peace is no longer just an absence of conflict, it is a profitable investment. So what conclusion can we draw in this month of March 2026? Donald Trump has certainly succeeded where many had failed. He broke the status quo of frozen conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza through the brute force of his will and the brutality of his financial levers. Blood is flowing less abundantly on certain fronts. The lines are stabilized, and that is an undeniable fact. But at what price is this lull obtained? The Trump peace is not a peace of reconciliation or justice. It is a peace of mutual exhaustion and constraint. It is a world order where international law is replaced by the law of the strongest, tempered only by the art of the deal. As tripartite negotiations continue in a climate of extreme mistrust and strikes against Iran, at an explosive layer of uncertainty, a fundamental question remains. Is this new system capable of preventing the next great global spark, or is it merely delaying the inevitable by weakening the multilateral structures that maintained a semblance of balance since 1945? The answer may lie in the intrinsic fragility of these agreements. They do not rely on solid treaties ratified by parliaments, but on the unpredictable personality and social media presence of a single man. We may be living through the end of forever wars, as Trump likes to call them, but we may also be entering an era of permanent instability, a fragmented world where peace is negotiated every morning to the highest bidder, and where security is only guaranteed as long as the deal remains profitable for Washington.